It is 9:09 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. It is the 3rd day of October, 2025, and this is episode 1182 of Bitcoin. And you're here because it's all the news that you can use about Bitcoin and more. So today, on deck, Ecash Coffee Day. Okay, well, we'll talk about that. But what's interesting is that it's written by Obi Nwosu. And I really like reading stuff from Obi. He's big time into Lightning and whatnot. But if you listen to him talk on podcasts and whatnot, he talks so fast. It's really, I'm not making fun of the guy. I'm just saying he talks so fast, it's kind of hard to understand what he's saying. So when he writes stuff, you really get into the mind of this particular individual. So we're going to talk about his thoughts about Ecash and using it to buy coffee. Well, at least that's what I suspect. And the Tether co-founder is suggesting that all currencies will be stablecoins, and he gives a date, and it's actually it's closer than you think. And then Samsung is allowing Coinbase on their Galaxy device. So users will be able to access that. We'll get into that more. And then New York is doubling down on making sure that they have absolutely no Bitcoin mining industry whatsoever. Then the CME, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, has made a massive change, and it's going to affect the quote-unquote crypto space. Metaplanet's in the news, Canaan is in the news, and then we will end with a word of warning. Yet again, we've got somebody who has lost their, I don't know if it's Bitcoin yet or not. We'll find out together, but has lost a lot of money. I mean, a lot of money because they were careless about how they handled their private key. It's sad, but I bring those stories to you so that we, especially at the end of the show, I know I'm supposed to be happy at the end of the show, but this is the kind of shit that will make you unhappy for the rest of your life. So listen up when we get to it, all right? So let's get back to the front of the show. Bitcoin Magazine, Obi Nwosu, why Ecash Coffee Day is no longer just a celebration, but a call to action. 4 years ago, in a building in the former industrial heart of Prague, Eric Syrian sat at his computer with freshly written code and a simple mission: buy a cup of coffee with Bitcoin. The place was Pereleni Polis during the annual Hackers Congress, a fitting venue for an experiment in digital freedom. This was not the first time Bitcoin had been used to buy coffee, but this time it was different. After a few false starts, the transaction finally went through and history was made. It was the world's first purchase using Ecash on Bitcoin, specifically the Fedimint Ecash protocol, a Chaumian Ecash system built on top of Bitcoin. Eric marked the moment with a tweet, and what seemed like a small act, just coffee, became something greater. And here's the tweet. It says, just bought a delicious coffee using Lightning, paid anonymously via Minimint, a Chaumian Ecash federation. To understand the significance of that coffee, we must look further back. In the 1980s, David Chaum introduced the concept of Ecash, pioneering digital money that was private by default through cryptographic innovation. His company, DigiCash, was ahead of its time, but the core idea endured: money that works like cash, untraceable, fungible, and private. Years later, Hal Finney, the recipient of the very first Bitcoin transaction from Satoshi Nakamoto, recognized Bitcoin's potential, but also its limits. He foresaw the need for layers on top of Bitcoin that could deliver stronger privacy protections, echoing Chaum's vision while grounding it in the resilience of Bitcoin. When Eric Syrian bought that coffee in Prague, he was building on this lineage, carrying Chom's ideas and Finney's foresight into a working protocol for private payments atop Bitcoin. In the months that followed, the Fedimint protocol was released, development accelerated, and adoption began to spread. Soon after, another protocol, Cashew, emerged, offering a single mint model that offered easier setup and rapid experimentation. Fedimint, by contrast, enabled resilience through multi-party federated custody. Together, these approaches added fuel to what has become a vibrant and growing Ecash ecosystem. Since then, more and more projects aiming to scale Bitcoin have begun exploring or experimenting, or rather implementing enhanced privacy on top of the hardest money that the world has ever seen. This reflects a growing recognition that scaling Bitcoin without privacy leaves the most vulnerable exposed. BitVM, a new scaling solution, has inspired the concept of ZK coins, an Ecash-like system with reduced trust assumptions that is still in development but promising. Arc, a layer 2 that provides a way to scale Lightning transactions in a trust-minimized way, is still early but has been exploring privacy as one of its potential core features. Spark, a system using state chains to increase Bitcoin's transaction throughput, has more recently gained traction and is already committed to adding privacy capabilities as it evolves. On-chain innovations like Wabi-Sabi, CoinSwap, and silent payments are also advancing, making it harder to trace transactions and reducing address linkability without introducing new trust models. What we're seeing is not a single movement led by any one protocol, but a certain consciousness rising across the Bitcoin ecosystem. Privacy cannot be optional. Ecash, with its visibility and practical use cases, has been the vanguard of this conversation. Its progress may have helped influence or accelerate broader interest, but it is ultimately part of a larger push, uniting multiple projects, on-chain and off, around the shared goal of protecting financial privacy on Bitcoin. Quote, "Without privacy, Bitcoin risks becoming vulnerable to coercion and abuse. With privacy, it becomes a lifeline." End quote. This is not just a technical debate. The stakes are real. Around the world, Ecash is already being used by some of the most disempowered communities, people living under authoritarian regimes, activists and journalists working under constant surveillance, families simply trying to transact safely without being monitored or censored. As authoritarianism rises globally, the need for private tools is only growing stronger. Without privacy, Bitcoin risks becoming vulnerable to coercion, surveillance, and abuse. With privacy, Bitcoin becomes a lifeline, offering empowerment to everyone and especially to those who need it most. Last year, we at Fedi began celebrating Ecash Coffee Day as a lighthearted way to mark the 3rd anniversary of the first Ecash coffee purchase on Bitcoin. But today, it carries a much deeper meaning. Ecash Coffee Day should not only commemorate where we've come from, it should serve as a call to action, an anchor date that reminds us of the unfinished work ahead. Until Bitcoin has privacy by default for everyone, everywhere, our job is not done. This day should remind us that privacy is not an add-on, not a luxury, and not just a feature request. It is a non-negotiable cornerstone of freedom. And even when we achieve strong privacy on Bitcoin, Ecash Coffee Day should endure, reminding us to maintain it, defend it, and ensure it never erodes. So, let us mark this anniversary not just with celebration, but with commitment. Commitment to building, funding, and supporting privacy-preserving technologies. Commitment to ensuring that the next 4 years see not just experiments, but mass adoption. Commitment to the principle that the ability to transact privately is a basic human right, because in the end, it isn't just about code or protocols or even Bitcoin itself. It's about people, and their ability to live, to thrive, and to be free. 4 years on, one Bitcoin halving, the lesson of that coffee in Prague could not be clearer. Private is key. That is, transactional privacy, ideally operated by private individuals, is essential for Bitcoin to truly succeed. So that is the end of that particular article. And I must admit, it caught me by surprise. I had no idea that Fediment actually started this way with the purchase of a coffee. And I certainly didn't know that it was that long ago. 4 years. 4 years we've had Fediment. It's really only been, honestly, from what I can see, when I'm scanning nostr, when I'm looking at Tether, as I've been reading articles to you for the last 8 years, Fediment and Ecash has only really been a quote unquote a thing for the last 2 years, where everybody started talking about it, where we started getting cashew invoices, up on nostr, and all kinds of stuff around Fediment and Ecash, and then we get Spark and Arc, and all kinds of neat stuff is going on. But it really has only been, I think, in the public spotlight for 2 years. I had no idea it's been 4 years since Fediment was born. Either way, it takes nothing away from the fact that Obi's right. Without privacy, we're all kind of hosed. And yes, there's always something that's going to hose us down in Bitcoin. If it's not some idiot trying to put child porn on the blockchain, it's some other idiot saying that governments are going to make Bitcoin illegal. But here's the thing. Obi says something about the rise of authoritarianism in the world. This is actually the problem. And I am not going to entertain, well, you mean Trump? Dude, have you looked at the world lately? Is it possible that there's a whole bunch of people that think it's just about Trump? Yes, there is. Meanwhile, there's something like somewhere between 180 and 200 countries in the world, and all of them, the entire citizenry of the world, which is probably 95% of the world's population that has zero to do with the government that controls them, have allowed, through apathy and inaction, authoritarianism to spread everywhere. And I'm not talking about fascism. I'm talking about somebody like Keir Starmer is a fucking authoritarianism. He's a totalitarian. He's the worst of the worst of the worst. You think Trump's bad? Dude, have you listened to what's going on in the UK? The farmers are almost one hair away from having their land just appropriated. The state of California right now is talking about appropriating farmland and pulling a South Africa, or not, is it South Africa or Nigeria? I can't remember. So one of the countries in Africa pulled the farms from the white man. Oh my God, it's the white man. And just gave it to the poorest people in whatever country I'm talking about. They're talking about doing the same thing in California. Do you know what happened I think it is actually South Africa. I really do. I think it's South Africa that did this, and a couple of other ones too, but South Africa definitely did it. The farmers that they gave the farmland to can't farm. They don't know how to farm. It's been a disaster, right? And that's just farmland. This shit is everywhere. You have to have a license plate for your car. You have to have a driver's license. You have to have an ID. You have to have this. You have to have that. Got to have a passport. You got to do it. All it ever was a method of control. We just keep taking it. Do I have a remedy? Not one that I'm actually willing to speak on air. You want to go have a beer with me? I will tell you all about it, but you're probably not going to like the answer, but I am not going to utter it here. In fact, we've got a slightly larger fish to fry. Brian Quarmby from Cointelegraph says, well, he doesn't say, Tether's co-founder Reeve Collins says all currencies will be stablecoins by 2030. Tether co-founder Reeve Collins expects all currency to become stablecoins by 2030 as part of a broader shift that will see all forms of finance go on chain. Quote, all currency will be a stablecoin. So even fiat currency will be a stablecoin. It'll just be called dollars, euros, or yen, said Collins in a wide-ranging interview during Token 2049 in Singapore. Quote, a stablecoin simply is a dollar, a euro, a yen, or, a traditional currency running on a blockchain rail by the year 2030, he added. Collins argues that stablecoins will be the primary method for transferring money within the next 5 years, as the benefits of tokenized assets have become too compelling for traditional finance to ignore. Quote, probably before that, because you're still going to use dollars, but it depends on what your definition of stablecoin is. The definition of stablecoin is essentially that you're moving money on a blockchain, he added. Collins said that the best thing to ever happen to the crypto market was the positive shift in stance toward the sector by the United States government this year. He argued that many large TradFi firms were too afraid to enter the industry out of fear of government scrutiny. And while there is still some gray area surrounding the industry, it's a very different ballgame these days. The Tether co-founder stated that this shift has opened the floodgates, with the traditional finance world scrambling to enter the crypto sector and blockchain-based stablecoins being a key focus due to their inherent utility. Quote, every large institution, every bank, everyone wants to create their own stablecoin because it's lucrative and it's just a better way to transact. And so those floodgates are open, and what it's going to lead to is that soon there won't be CeFi and DeFi. There will be applications that do things, move money, give loans, do investments, and it will be a mix of the kind of the old traditional style investments and then the DeFi types of investments, end quote. Collins said tokenized assets offer far greater transparency and efficiency than non-tokenized assets, given that they can be moved quickly across the globe without middlemen, which in turn offers more potential upside. Quote, that is why the tokenization narrative is so big, because everyone realizes the increase in the utility that you get from a tokenized asset versus a non-tokenized asset is so significant that even the same two assets, just once they're moved on chain, since the utility increases, that means the return increases, end quote. However, Collins acknowledged that there was also no risks to such a monumental shift in global finance, such as the security of blockchain bridges, smart contracts, and crypto wallets. Pausing to say, I messed that up. Collins acknowledged that there were also risks to such monumental shifts in global finance. Crypto hacks and social engineering are also key issues that need to be addressed, he said, though he emphasized that overall levels of security are improving. Quote, and so the old trade-off is still going to remain there, which is, if you want to be fully in control, you can do that, but it's technically complex. If you want to trust a third party like you do traditionally with banks, there are a lot more of those services like the custodial versus non-custodial, so that those services will get more robust and people will have the options moving forward. So yes, there are always risks in technology, he concluded. All right, so it's a kind of a weird ending to that particular article, but it's okay. So Collins is saying that all fiat money around the world will be relocated to a blockchain of some form or another in the form of stablecoins. Now, we've theorized about this for a long time, that this whole notion of CBDCs is a surveillance state type of money that is whose origin comes from the governments themselves. Then there's the other side that says that stablecoins are really CBDCs just in disguise because they're coming from the private sector. Tether is not a governmental agency. If I want to put on my tinfoil hat, I could, and then start suggesting that the CIA built Tether and we don't know about it, just like the CIA really is the people that put out Bitcoin. That kind of conjecture, while sometimes it's fun, doesn't result in any concrete methods of moving forward because you don't really know. And if you don't really know the premises of the arguments that you're making, then there can be no conclusions, right? It doesn't mean that I don't get into tinfoil hattery. I do. It's just that the origins of that are always unknown. You cannot be sure. So I don't want to get into that, but that doesn't mean that there's not still a problem. CBDCs could very well end up being, stablecoins could very well end up being the CBDC that we are rightfully scared of, or at least worried about. And that worry, if you were able to say, how do we get people to not worry about CBDCs? Oh, I know. We'll let the private sector develop it, and then we will wrangle that entire industry through regulation. Now, that means, in the logical conclusion of that, if the authoritarians that I was talking about in the first piece are able to successfully wrangle stablecoins under regulations to the point that I'm thinking of, then there is no distinction between stablecoins and CBDCs. And that's where we have to watch out. Right? We really need to be holding Paolo Ardoino and this Collins guy, we need to hold their feet to the fire, which is an easy way of saying we've got to make them responsible. How? How do you hold somebody's feet to the fire? And I know I shouldn't say shit like that unless I've got at least an answer. I don't. Because this goes right back to the essence and the origins of authoritarianism itself. Through our lack of conviction, our complete embrace of apathy as the citizenry of the world, we've allowed the most fucking psychotic people to tell us what to do. And they've wrapped themselves in money and arms to the point that they essentially have become a mob with the most highly effective private police force that protects them and not us that the world has ever seen. So all the bitching and moaning that we do about Keir Starmer, all the bitching and moaning that we do about red light cameras that are scanning your license plate and all the other surveillance, and you can just wrap it all up into a nice little bow or ball and wrap it in a tinfoil bow and just say, here, I'm talking about all of it. All of it came because of our apathy. We have to deal with all of this through centuries of allowing people who have tricked us into believing that they're more important than us, that they're smarter than us, tricked us into believing that they're here for our well-being. They are not. They are here for their well-being because they figured out a way to psychologically manipulate tens of millions and hundreds of millions to the point that it's become billions of people into thinking that they are our savior. And they are not our savior. They are, in fact, the wolves in sheep's clothing. We cannot let this CBDC versus stablecoin action morph into where they just are indistinguishable from each other. How? I don't know. I'm not that smart. I've got 4 brain cells left. But it's enough to know that this fits right into it. Samsung adds Coinbase crypto access for its 75 million Galaxy device users. Ian Allison is writing this one for CoinDesk. Samsung is teaming up with Coinbase to give 75 million Galaxy device owners in the United States access to the exchange's priority trading service, making it the largest single consumer distribution Coinbase has ever executed, and Samsung Galaxy's biggest crypto bet to date, the companies jointly announced on Thursday. The Samsung wallet will allow Galaxy owners access to the Coinbase One service, which includes zero trading fees and increased staking rewards. It means users can explore crypto. Oh, I want to go explore crypto and play with my Bitcoins without downloading a separate app or moving funds across platforms. That means it's embedded in the operating system, guys. This is probably not good. It's probably not a good deal. Samsung Pay is also being linked to Coinbase accounts. Jesus, it's like I didn't expect it to get this bad this fast. It allows Galaxy owners to make payments tied to their holdings. As such, crypto tools will be available in the same place that phone users already store payment cards, transit passes, and IDs. Do you see where it's going? Do you understand how bad this is? Don't use this. Just execute your Coinbase account with extreme prejudice. And by execute, I mean put its head on a chopping block, use a giant axe, and behead that motherfucker right now. Get rid of your Coinbase account. This is in the place of convenience, you will find control. I'm just saying, man. Quote, our mission is to bring more than 1 billion people on chain and track them. And that starts with meeting them where they already are, on their phones, said Shan Agarwal, or however you pronounce it, Chief Business Officer of Coinbase. What the hell's a Chief Business Officer? You mean a Chief Operations? Oh, whatever. While the rollout starts in the U.S., Samsung and Coinbase plan to expand the program to international markets over the coming months. Quote, Samsung Wallet is a trusted tool. Oh, you can trust us, just like we trust our federal governments, right? To millions of Galaxy users. And we're continually working to find creative ways to enhance the experience with added functionality, said Drew Blackard, SVP of Mobile Product Management from Samsung Electronics America. This is a terrifying state of affairs. Not that we don't already have this kind of crap. It's just now the connections between, well, I'm going to say it, Bitcoin and the traditional surveillance apparatus. Not TradFi, not CFI. No, not that. No, traditional surveillance mechanisms, apparatus, machinery, whatever word you want to put in there. This has nothing to do with convenience. Convenience is the gift wrap that they put around the box that holds your eventual financial servitude in. Open it if you want. I'm staying away. And I'm going to go over to Nourishing Family Farm at nourishingfamilyfarm.com. That's nourishingfamilyfarm.com. This is a special place for Circle P. If you don't know what Nourishing Family Farm is, then you didn't listen to my interview with J.R. Burdick the other day. That would be, I believe, episode 1179 of Bitcoin. And this is his website where you can buy raw milk. You can also buy some chicken, whole chickens, and I think he's got some cut up chickens too. And you can also get some all natural pasture raised pork. Now, he cannot ship raw milk. I mean, it just doesn't work that way. You don't really, if you're a private family farm, you don't ship raw milk. You can ship chickens though, and you can ship pork. So if you can, go over to nourishingfamilyfarm.com. That's nourishingfamilyfarm, all one word.com, and at least look. Because one of the things that J.R. Burdick said was that he can't find anybody that will pay him in Bitcoin for his goods and services. Now, this is a dairyman. Like in the dairy business for like 35 years or so, something like that. He's like, he's in his 50s and he's fallen fully down the rabbit hole. And yet he's a little bit disillusioned with Bitcoin. And he, as far as I know, is not a shitcoiner. He's really only interested in Bitcoin itself. But he wants people to pay him in Bitcoin because he thinks that if you don't use Bitcoin as money, as a tool to procure goods and services from another human being, then it's not really fulfilling its destiny. And I tend to agree with him. I spend Bitcoin. I've used Bitcoin to buy goods and services. I don't have really that much of a problem with it, but I don't want to get into the nuances of that. What I do want is for J.R. Burdick to at least meet some people who do, in fact, use their Bitcoin to purchase goods and services directly from other Bitcoiners. I told him a little bit about the Circle P, and I told him that I would feature his website and talk a little bit about this issue yet one more time in a Circle P segment. So here it is. So go to nourishingfamilyfarm.com. You'll have his emails there. Everything about how to get a hold of J.R. Burdick is there. But J.R. doesn't have the ability to drop in the ability to pay for Bitcoin directly on his website. So you got to email him, right? These are the friction points that stop us from completing our mission as Bitcoiners. It'll solve it will get solved. I have no doubt in my mind that it's going to become easier and easier for somebody like me and JR to simply start using Bitcoin on our websites without having to code shit up or figure shit out. Just a button that I can just drop on my website so that JR can drop on his website. But in the meantime, it would be very nice for you guys to go hit nourishingfamilyfarm.com and look at what he has to offer. And if you're interested further, then go to his contact button at the top right of his webpage and email him and say you're interested in buying his goods and services with Bitcoin, but make sure that you tell him that you heard it here on the Bitcoin and podcast so that JR understands that there are other people that listen to this show that do want to buy goods and services with Bitcoin. Let's move on to New York, where they are putting the hammer down on a gun that's pointed to their head because they want to shoot themselves. From Atlas 21, I got this one. New York Democrat lawmakers propose an excise tax on Bitcoin miners. Lawmakers in New York State are seeking to introduce a new tax on Bitcoin mining, arguing that their excessive use of electricity is driving up bills for ordinary citizens. Have you looked at AI, people? Anyway, on October the 1st, Democratic Senator Liz Krueger and Assembly member Anna Kellis introduced a bill that aims to impose an excise tax on mining operations based on the proof of work consensus mechanism. The legislative proposal, identified as Senate Bill S8518, stipulates that mining companies would pay taxes proportional to their energy consumption destined for New York's energy affordability programs, which provide essential assistance to low and middle income households across the state. Quote, the bill ensures that the companies driving up New Yorkers' electricity rates pay their fair share while providing direct relief to families struggling with rising utility costs, Senator Krueger said in the statement. Now, according to that statement, research has shown that the arrival of dedicated mining facilities is increasing electricity bills statewide, adding an estimated $79 million per year for private citizens and $165 million per year for small businesses. So here's how the tax would work. The bill establishes that miners consuming between 2.25 and 5 million kilowatt hours would be taxed at 2 cents per kilowatt hour. Operations using between 5 and 10 million kilowatt hours would pay 3 cents, while miners consuming between 10 and 20 would pay 4 cents per kilowatt hour. Consumptions above 20 million kilowatt hours would face a rate of 5 cents per kilowatt hour, and mining operations that use sustainable energy would be exempt from the tax, according to the bill, in an effort to promote innovation, and sustainability within the digital asset sector. That's the end of that article. However, if I use any amount of renewable energy, does that mean my entire tax bill goes away? If 99% of all the electricity as a miner that I use in New York State comes from burning natural gas, or, well, I don't think they have any live coal plants, but from fossil fuels. Let's just say if I'm getting 99% of my electrons from the burning of fossil fuels and only 1% comes from, I don't know, say a wind farm and a solar farm, am I exempt from the entire tax bill? I don't know. It's not said in this article. My view is no. I would think that, let's say you got 50 from burning fossil fuels and 50 from solar. That 50% from solar, that's going to be exempt. That's probably how that shit's going to work. But it's not really going to matter because this is all bullshit anyway. I'm pretty sure that New York State has a couple of high energy consumption data centers used for AI, and they're not even talking about that. Why? Because this isn't about what they say it's about. They don't like Bitcoin. They never have liked Bitcoin. They probably never will like Bitcoin. And just like in the early days of the formation of the United States of America, we will probably be able to buy Manhattan for a Bitcoin. Let's run the numbers. Well, energy seems to be getting some relief today. West Texas Intermediate is up a point to $61.10. Natural gas hedging, as always, 2.3% to the downside. Gasoline is up 0.75%. Merbon crude is up 1.27%. And Brent North Sea is up 0.94% to $64.71 a barrel. CNBC has straight up pissed me off because now their CNBC.com/futures and commodities page changes the order of everything every single day. I guess it's like, I don't know who's like, I don't know how they're doing it, because West Texas Intermediate has never been on the top of the stack. Same goes for the metals, which are all in the green in a big, big way today. Copper is up 3 1/4. Palladium is up 2 3/4. Gold hitting a new all-time high after a 1% rise is sitting at $3,908.01. Platinum is up 3.5%, and silver is up 3.66%, smacking through the $48 an ounce price. Ag is mostly in the green today. Biggest loser is chocolate. Wow, 5% to the downside almost. Biggest winner is coffee, 3.3% to the upside. Meanwhile, live cattle is up 0.18%, lean hogs up 0.75%, feeder cattle up 0.5%. The S&P is up 0.5% as well. NASDAQ kind of crawling sideways, but Dow is up 1.1%, and the S&P Mini is up 0.8%. And Bitcoin is at, holy shit, Bitcoin's at 123,320. That is a $2.46 trillion market cap. We can now purchase 31.7 ounces of shiny metal rocks with our one Bitcoin, of which there are 19,929,529.29. That's a lot of 29s. That's 3 29s all in a row. Wow. That's kind of interesting. Average fees per block remain relatively cool, 0.3%. 0.3 BTC taken in fees on a per block basis. Sorry, the 29s and the $123,000 price tag kind of threw me for a stumble. Looks to be about 42 blocks carrying 108,000 unconfirmed transactions waiting to clear at high priority rates. Right now they're high, 6 Satoshis per VByte. Low priority is going to get you in at 4. Hash rate holding at a zettahash. 1.06 zettahashes per second is pretty much all that you'd ever be able to need for security on the Bitcoin network. From yesterday's episode of Bitcoin, and I've got Jason High with 500 sats says residents of U.S. territories do not pay federal income tax. Oh, no shit. Then why do we do business? Okay, you know what? Fine, I'm wrong. Jason High, thank you for the education. He says, I lived in the Virgin Islands as a kid. We only paid local taxes. Oh, wow. So how did the territories pay for their defense? Oh, you know what? I don't care. Yodel with 522 says, got some value, so here's a boost. Have a good weekend. Yes, I appreciate that. Bit by bit with, 2,100 sats, and gives me an emoji I can't read because, yes, I'm on Windows 7 or XP or something like that. BTC on board with 100 also gives me emojis I can't read. Wartime 133. If he moves to Puerto Rico, that's not tax evasion. That's just using the tax code and playing by the rules. Fuck them. Dirty criminal thieves. Yes, Puerto Rico is a tax haven because it's a crappy place to live, and they're trying to get people with money to go there and live and invest. They do get special IRS treatment for things like trading and capital gains. It sounds like that wasn't the issue, though. The issue was that he was claiming to live in Puerto Rico when he was actually living in San Francisco, and he got caught doing that. Yes, that's definitely my take on it. Where I was confused on was territories. I thought they paid federal income tax. It's amazing that they don't. It's a revelation to me. It's absolute revelation. I should, if I didn't want to move back to Texas so bad, I'd probably move to the Virgin Islands. Pies with 421 says, NunyaBidness is by far the most underrated and underappreciated pleb/pioneer/Bitcoin podcaster in the world. Wow. Thank you, sir, for all the content you put out and the Bitcoin businesses you promote. Kind words from a kind man. Thank you, Pies. It means a lot to me. It really does. Magnitude27 says, how are you using the RSI feed to push out your pod? And then he also comes back and asks, what are the main podcasts that you like? I will answer those questions. The way that I made sure that my RSS feed, the main way that I made sure that my RSS feed goes to every single podcast app available, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, a whole bunch of other places, was to make sure that I put my RSS URL into podcastindex.com. Go to I think it's actually podcastindex.org. Hold on. Let me make sure. Podcast index. Podcast. No, that's not what I was like. No. Okay, we'll go here. Okay, it is podcastindex.org. Now, what is it? Well, it's the literal library of all RSS feeds. Now, technically you shouldn't have to do this, but I went ahead and did it anyway. You're going to want to add, let's see, make sure that, add a feed to the index. Enter the URL of the podcast feed in the box below. So I use that, and this is, by the way, podcastindex.org/add, ADD, podcastindex.org/add. It was the way that I added my RSS feed to the index. The index was born before, if I remember right, it's Adam Curry, and not John Dvorak, was it? I can't remember his partner's name on Podcast Index right now. He's the back end dude, the coder guy. They built this, I think, before Apple Podcast was a thing, right? And it was a library of all the RSS feeds, because Adam Curry is the progenitor of podcasting itself. So he had a vested interest in making sure that there was a repository of all the RSS feeds. Then he had a meeting with the head guy from Apple. He died of pancreatic cancer. Steve Jobs. Had a face-to-face with Steve Jobs, and Steve Jobs asked him, hey, can we use Podcast Index to populate the RSS feeds? in our upcoming podcast app. And of course, Adam Curry is going to say yes. And he did. He's like, absolutely. You can go ahead and do that. It has become the go-to repository for all RSS feeds. So if you have a podcast and you have not taken the time to put your RSS feed into podcastindex.org, you need to go do that. Okay. Go do that and do it now. And Pies finishes us off with 121 sats, says, thank you, sir. No, thank you. That's the weather report. Welcome to part 2 of the news that you can use. CME Group, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange Group, to offer round-the-clock trading for cryptocurrency futures and options. This is from PR Newswire out of Chicago yesterday. CME Group, the world's leading derivatives marketplace, today announced that its cryptocurrency futures and options will be available to trade 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, beginning in early 2026, pending regulatory review. Quote, while not all markets lend themselves to operating 24/7, bullshit, yes they do, client demand for around-the-clock cryptocurrency trading has grown as market participants need to manage their risk every day of the week. Ooh, that sounds like an exciting way to waste the rest of your life, but... Quote, ensuring that our regulated cryptocurrency markets are always on will enable clients to trade with confidence at any time. Oh boy. And that comes from Tim McCourt, Global Head of Equities, FX, and Alternative Products at CME Group. Beginning in early 2026, CME Group cryptocurrency futures and options will trade continuously on CME Globex with at least a 2-hour weekly maintenance period over the weekend. All holiday and weekend trading from Friday evening through Sunday evening will have a trade date of the following business day, with clearing, settlement, and regulatory reporting process the following business day as well. So, congratulations, we've done it. We've gotten shitty cryptocurrency to trade 24/7 on CME. This is going to be great. I'm sure it'll be fine. It'll be just fine, ladies and gentlemen. But Metaplanet, coming up next, they have now become the 4th largest public Bitcoin holder with 30,823 Bitcoin. Shit. This is, by the way, Alex Larry out of BitcoinNews.com. Japanese company Metaplanet has officially joined the ranks of the top 5 public Bitcoin holding companies globally. After a series of big buys in 2025, the Tokyo-listed company now holds 30,823 Bitcoin worth more than $3.6 billion, making it the 4th largest publicly traded Bitcoin treasury company in the world. The milestone was reached on October the 1st, 2025, when Metaplanet bought 5,268 Bitcoin at an average price of $116,870 per coin, spending more than $615 million in the process. Well, this latest buy pushed the company past its 2025 fiscal year goal of 30,000 Bitcoin, which is well ahead of schedule. Quote, Q3 results demonstrate operational scalability and strengthen the financial foundation of our planned Metaplanet preferred shared issuance, which supports our broader Bitcoin treasury strategy, said Simon Gurovich, the firm's president and CEO. Metaplanet's transformation is one of the most remarkable corporate turnarounds in recent years. Once a small hospitality company, it has rebranded itself as Asia's Bitcoin rocket ship. There's a little bit more to that story, but it just kind of goes into history and you kind of don't need it. All we really care about here is that Metaplanet doesn't seem to be dying. However, somebody on, I think, Twitter made an interesting observation, or at least a guess, is that MicroStrategy should buy Metaplanet. Well, That's not a terrible way to buy another 30,823 Bitcoin. It would be interesting if that happened. We'll have to see, but I'm wondering if Michael Saylor just wouldn't do it out of principle. Like, would not do it out of principle. You might say, well, he's Michael Saylor. The principle is going to be that he's going to hoover up as much Bitcoin as he possibly can. And Metaplanet is a big fat, juicy target just sitting out there in the wind. I'm thinking that Michael Saylor might be at least, better than we might think, and say, you know what? I'm just going to purchase the Bitcoin on the markets as we've got planned, using the debt instrumentation that we've designed, and Metaplanet can go do their thing. We'll see. It'll be interesting if he makes a motion to buy Metaplanet, though. I will say that. Now, Canaan Mining, their shares surge after 50,000 rig Bitcoin mining deal. Nate Kostar from Cointelegraph. Canaan Incorporated shares jumped more than 26% in early trading on Thursday after the mining firm landed a 50,000 rig order. Canaan said that a U.S.-based company purchased the latest generation Avalon A15 Pro mining machines, which is an institutional-grade mining rig. The buyer was not disclosed, but the sale was reported as Canaan's largest in over 3 years. The company's CEO, Nanzhen Zhang, said the sale highlighted both companies' confidence in the long-term growth of Bitcoin mining and the demand for highly efficient next-generation infrastructure. According to the hash rate index, the United States accounts for 36% of the global Bitcoin hash rate, the computing power miners use to secure the network, making it the world's largest mining hub. Canaan, a crypto mining hardware company founded in Beijing in 2013, saw its shares up 26.4% to $1.31 on NASDAQ at the time of writing, according to Yahoo Finance. The shares have increased over 50% in the past 6 months, while still experiencing a 40% decline year to date. And then they talk about the Bitcoin mining, and we don't really need to talk about that. Let's just see. Yeah, and then they talk about solo mining, and we don't need to talk about that either. What we do need to talk about is that Canaan is not forgotten as a mining company, a mining rig manufacturing company. Everybody's like, oh, it's always Bitmain. Oh, it's always this. I can't remember the other company's name. Canaan sometimes seems to get forgotten. They are not forgotten. 50,000 mining machine deal is nothing to sneeze at. And then we come to the final story of today's episode. A thief snaps a photograph of victim's seed phrase in an apartment and steals $1.7 million in crypto. Cal and Quinn decrypt. A former Singapore Armed Forces diver has admitted in court to stealing $1.7 million in cryptocurrency after secretly photographing a seed phrase belonging to a Chinese national living in Singapore. 34-year-old Teo Rong Wan, who previously served in the military's naval diving unit, admitted to charges including housebreaking, misusing a computer system, and dealing with ill-gotten gains in court on October the 1st, according to the Straits Times. Seed phrases, typically a sequence of random words, act as a master key to cryptocurrency wallets. Unlike a password, a stolen seed phrase cannot be reset, meaning access to funds is irrevocably lost once compromised. Seed phrase theft is one of the most common ways for thieves and hackers to obtain access to a person's wallet. Infrastructure attacks targeting private keys and seed phrases made up 70% of stolen funds just last year, according to TRM Labs. The firm added they are often obtained through poor storage practices, phishing campaigns, and malware deployment. Court records show that Teo met the 30-year-old victim in mid-2022 through a mutual friend. During a football match gathering at the victim's home, Teo obtained a condominium access card under the pretense of helping another guest. He failed to return the card. Then, on December 31st, 2022, Teo exploited that access to re-enter the victim's unit while the victim was out. He found and photographed a piece of paper containing the 24-word seed phrase for the victim's Ledger Nano X hardware wallet. The next day, Teo used the seed phrase to transfer $1.7 million in USDT stablecoin to his own wallet. Prosecutors said Teo spent the money on luxury watches, online gambling, and mortgage payments. Jesus. Gambling and luxury watches. What is the deal with a luxury watch? Why is it necessary to broadcast your wealth to people you don't know? For fuck's sake, come up with something more ingenious, for the love of God. Anyway, whatever. About $1.1 million was then converted into US dollars and moved into his bank account. Again, come up with some imagination. Teo later admitted to the crime after the victim discovered the missing funds and blockchain investigators linked the theft to his wallet. Well, of course. Teo claimed he was motivated by heavy financial losses following the 2022 collapse of cryptocurrency exchange FTX. Industry experts said the case illustrates how human error and weak storage practices continue to undermine digital asset security. Quote, "This case is a strong reminder that user behavior is as important as product security," Veronica Wong, CEO and co-founder of crypto wallet suite SafePal, told Decrypt. She recommended that long-term holders use hardware wallets with encrypted chipsets, while active traders might consider cloud backups, though she cautioned such methods also introduced risks tied to third-party encryption and account access. Peter Kozyakov, I guess is how you pronounce it, co-founder and CEO of payments platform Mercurio, added that the case highlighted how securely safeguarding a seed phrase is of critical importance for individuals practicing self-custody. Quote, "Storage in a secure location, such as a bank safety deposit box, is best practice. However, there is unfortunately not a panacea in regard to keeping digital assets safe," he said. He also said other best practices would be to write a seed phrase on a durable material such as fireproof metal plates and store that in multiple secure locations, or better, use a multi-signature wallet which requires approvals from 2 or more private keys to authorize any transaction from their wallet. So the dude breaks into the guy's house, ostensibly because the dude is out partying his ass off. You know, it seems like it was New Year's Eve, December 31st, 2024. And, you know, took a picture of his shit, which brings to mind the question, how did he know where the sheet of paper was? Did the victim say, "Hey, look, man, this is my seed phrase"? Yeah, don't do that. Don't tell people where your seed phrase is. This is just again, terrible state of affairs. Please don't do this. Just saying. All right, so what have we learned? We've learned, well, don't show people where you keep your seed phrase, for one, but also authoritarianism is our fault. It really is. It's our fault. We've been told we can't act certain ways against the authoritarian regime, and that just does what? Well, it reinforces authoritarian regimes. It gives them time to build their armies, to build their weaponry, to build their security practices. I no longer view these people as legitimate leaders. I view them as a mob. And I don't mean an angry mob. I mean like the mob. Like Scarface, you know? You can kneecap a McGinty. These guys, the wise guys that come into the mom and pop shop and say, "Hey, you know, if you give me $100 every week, make sure everything here's fine." You get me? You understand what I'm trying to say here? You give me $100. I come in every week. I take $100. I don't want a check. I want cash. You give me cash. Don't tell anybody about it. And I'll make sure that those bozos that are outside, they never come in here. They never mess with your stuff, you know? Now, if you don't, I might go ask the bozos outside to come in here and mess up your shit. Do you understand how this works? That's what this is. That's what this has always been. I was saying it yesterday. It's like this unholy marriage between a group of people that were already pretty strong, but found themselves as not being strong enough. And then they looked at the very people that in the 20s and the 30s, they just knew they were the enemy. Organized crime, the mob. Didn't matter from what country, just the mob. These guys were organized. These guys were well organized. Governments looked at that and said, we should be that organized. How do we learn how to be that organized? Well, the easiest way is let's bring them into the fold. This happened. It certainly happened in the United States. It's a thing. You can go look it up. Just use Google if you want to. United States and organized crime. There was a project name of it, and I can't remember it right now. And yeah, it can get a little bit tinfoil hattery, but it definitely answers a lot of questions that you might have about why are these people doing what they're doing? Don't they care about the citizenry? Aren't they supposed to be here to protect us? Aren't they here to make sure that our money isn't stolen from us? And yet what do? They steal 2% of our money every year by law, or at least by mandate. That's one of the mandates of the Federal Reserve System. You will steal the money of the citizenry 2% every single year. Because that's what inflation does. And that's what the Federal Reserve mandate of 2% inflation rate as a target is. And most people don't know that, but it is. And they steal money from us in various other ways. Income tax is another form of theft, right? But you can't question it because even though American citizenry is well armed, you can't question it because they will shoot your ass and they will not get in trouble. If you try shooting them, oh, hell, Lord have mercy, you will end up getting in trouble. You will end up either with the death penalty or you will find yourself behind bars for the rest of your natural born days. So the question becomes, how were we maneuvered as the citizenry of the world, not just the United States, the citizenry of the world? Because one thing is for sure, death and taxes. Every country has a tax. Find me one country that doesn't tax you, doesn't have an income tax, doesn't have some kind of weird sales tax, doesn't have some kind of property tax or this tax or that tax. So some way to steal money from you, even at like a 2% inflation rate, or in some of these weird countries, 1,400% inflation rate, whatever. It doesn't really matter. How were we maneuvered into allowing these people to dictate to us that we had to give them their money? I mean, what is it that we defend these actions? There's a great large group of people that defend this. Joy Reid was on the show the other day, was saying the Republican Party, all they want to do is have no taxes. They want to be able to commit business the way they want, and they want to be able to leave their money to their children. How awful. They don't want tax. Oh my God. What could we do without tax? But that's another story. The real question I want to come back to is what happened? And more importantly, how long ago did it happen? Because I guarantee you this did not start in 1971. And it didn't start 100 years before that or 100 years before that. Somehow, this goes back 10, 11, 12,000 years. I'm thinking that this really did start with the advent of agriculture, which was about 11,000, 12,000 years ago. No, we didn't have tractors, but we did have plows. We became non-nomadic. And I think that the taxes and the control of people really started then and not before. And so we've got 12,000 years of human behavior to unravel. That's a lot of years to unravel. But you got to start somewhere, one foot before the other, and take a walk, and I'll see you on the other side. This has been Bitcoin and I'm your host, David Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and hope to see you again real soon. Have a great day.